The twin suns of Xyloria cast a golden-blue hue over the crystalline spires of the capital city, Etherian. The city was a masterpiece of bioarchitecture, its towers alive with pulsating light and vines of iridescent flora that hummed in harmony with the wind. Queen Letheria stood atop her royal balcony, gazing out at the vast landscape of her world. Her wings, adorned with delicate patterns that shimmered like liquid silver, quivered slightly in the breeze. Despite the beauty of her kingdom, Letheria's thoughts were burdened by the murmurs of the royal council. The Crutherians, a nomadic and violent species, had been expanding their reach. Reports of their attacks on nearby planets were becoming more frequent, and their insatiable hunger for resources threatened to destabilize the fragile balance of the Nebulan cluster. Xyloria's defenses, though advanced, were untested against such ruthless foes. "Your Majesty," came the voice of Sir Valrix, her loyal advisor, breaking her reverie. The tall Xylorian, his wings marked with the scars of many battles, bowed deeply. "The council awaits your presence." "There are troubling reports." Letheria turned to face him, her amethyst eyes narrowing. "Troubling is an understatement, Valrix. I sense a storm on the horizon." As she made her way to the council chamber, Letheria's thoughts drifted to the stories she had heard as a child, tales spun by her tutors of a strange species from the distant corners of the galaxy humans. They were said to be fragile creatures, bound to a single planet, yet capable of shaping their world with fire and steel. They had no wings to soar, no bioluminescent skins to blend with the stars, yet they were portrayed as unstoppable warriors. Her tutors spoke of humans as if they were a force of nature, beings who overcame insurmountable odds not through raw strength, but through ingenuity, stubbornness, and sheer willpower. According to the tales, the humans had repelled invaders from their world countless times, crafting weapons of unimaginable destruction. They were said to have once traveled the stars, leaving behind relics and ruins that hinted at their existence. Letheria had always dismissed these stories. Humans were a convenient myth, a cautionary tale told to inspire courage and resourcefulness in young Xylorians. After all, no evidence of their existence had ever been found. They were little more than legends, whispered among the star sailors who ventured into the depths of the galaxy. The council chamber, a vast dome of glimmering crystal, fell silent as Letheria entered. The holographic projection at the center displayed a grim sight, a distant planet in flames, its surface scarred with the unmistakable marks of Crutherian weaponry. "The Crutherians grow bolder," Valrix said, his voice heavy. "Their fleets now approach the outer edges of our system." A murmur of unease rippled through the council. Letheria raised a hand, silencing them. "We cannot allow fear to guide us. Our defenses are strong, and our allies within the Nebulan cluster are numerous. We will send emissaries to strengthen our bonds and prepare our forces for any aggression." "But Your Majesty," interjected Lady Silvara, a younger council member, her voice trembling, "the Crutherians have never been defeated in open conflict. They consume everything in their path. Perhaps we need to consider unconventional methods." Letheria tilted her head. "What do you propose, Silvara?" Silvara hesitated, glancing nervously at the other council members before speaking. "There are whispers among the star sailors of ancient allies, beings of legend. The humans. If the stories are true, their power and resourcefulness could turn the tide against the Crutherians." A wave of disbelief washed over the room. Valrix scoffed. "Humans? Fairytales to frighten hatchlings. We have no need for fantasies when we have our own strength." Letheria raised a hand again, her expression thoughtful. "And yet, myths often contain a seed of truth." She leaned forward, her wings folding tightly against her back. "Tell me, Silvara, where do these whispers lead?" Silvara hesitated, then gestured toward the holographic map, zooming in on a distant system at the edge of the known galaxy. "Here, Your Majesty. A forgotten sector where ruins have been discovered. Some say they are human in origin." Letheria's gaze lingered on the map. The idea was absurd, yet it ignited a spark of curiosity within her. If the Chtharians truly posed an existential threat, no possibility could be dismissed outright. "Prepare a team to investigate," she ordered finally. "If these ruins exist, we will uncover their secrets. But let us remain grounded in reality. Humans are myths, nothing more. We will rely on our own strength first and foremost." The council dispersed, and Letheria remained in the chamber, her eyes fixed on the holographic map. Deep within her, a flicker of doubt took root. Could the stories of humans, those fragile yet indomitable creatures, be more than just tales? As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, their light casting long shadows over Xyloria, she couldn't shake the feeling that her world was on the brink of a revelation. In the distance, the faint hum of Chtharian ships echoed in the night sky, a grim reminder that time was running out. The skies over Xyloria darkened, not with the tranquil dance of its twin moons, but with the shadow of war. Chtharian vessels, sleek and black as void serpents, hung in the heavens like harbingers of doom. The first waves of their assault came swiftly orbital bombardments that cracked the crystalline spires of the capital, sending shards of Xyloria's beauty raining down like falling stars. Queen Letheria stood within the shattered halls of her palace, her wings glinting faintly in the dim light of emergency biolamps. Around her, her advisors and generals scrambled to coordinate defenses. Holographic projections displayed scenes of chaos, Xylorian civilians fleeing the city, desperate to find safety in the subterranean shelters, soldiers battling Chtharian drones in the streets, their plasma lances struggling to pierce the invaders' advanced armor. Letheria clenched her jaw, her amethyst eyes narrowing. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil. Sir Valrix, blood dripping from a gash across his cheek, saluted before speaking. "The outer defense grid has been breached. The Chtharians have deployed ground forces in the western districts. We're holding them off for now, but their technology, it's unlike anything we've faced before. Our weapons are barely effective." Letheria turned her gaze to the holographic map. Her kingdom, her people, were being systematically dismantled. The Chtharians were not just an invading force, they were annihilators, leaving no room for negotiation or mercy. A cold dread settled in her chest. Xyloria's strength was not enough. As the council debated strategies, Lady Silvara approached the queen, her expression grim. "Your Majesty," she began hesitantly, "forgive my boldness, but we may need to consider the path we discussed." Letheria's wings tensed. She knew what Silvara meant: the humans. The ancient myths. The supposed saviors of the galaxy. She had dismissed the idea as a distraction, a fantasy. But now, as she stood amid the ruins of her palace, with her people's cries echoing in her ears, desperation clawed at her heart. "Do you truly believe they exist?" Letheria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Silvara admitted, "but the ruins we discussed, the ones in the Starsailor's tales, are our only lead. If there's even a chance they hold the key to finding these humans, we must try. What choice do we have?" Letheria glanced at Valrix, who was already shaking his head. "Your Majesty, this is madness," he argued. "Chasing after ghosts when our people need us here? We should focus on rallying our allies within the Nebulan cluster." "Our allies have not answered our calls," Letheria countered sharply. "The Chtharians are a threat to us all, yet they stand silent. If the humans are real, if there is even the slightest chance they can help us, we cannot afford to ignore it." Valrix's expression darkened, but he said nothing. The room fell silent, save for the distant rumble of explosions. Finally, Letheria straightened, her wings unfurling slightly as she made her decision. "Prepare the Astrea," she commanded, naming her personal starship. "I will go to the ruins myself." The council erupted in protest, but Letheria raised a hand to silence them. "This is no longer a matter for debate. Our world burns, and I will not sit idly by while hope, no matter how faint, remains." The Astrea was a marvel of Xylorian engineering, its sleek, organic design blending seamlessly with the advanced technologies of the Royal Fleet. Powered by the bioluminescent core of Xyloria's rarest crystals, it could traverse the stars faster than most vessels in the Nebulan cluster. Letheria boarded with a small crew of trusted advisors, including Silvara, and a contingent of elite guards. Their destination was a forgotten sector on the edge of the known galaxy, marked only by whispers and fragments of ancient star maps. The journey was fraught with tension. As the Astrea slipped into hyperspace, Letheria spent much of her time in solitude, gazing out at the swirling void. She thought of the myths she had heard as a child, stories of humans who had conquered not just their world, but the stars themselves. They were said to be cunning, relentless, and fiercely loyal to those they deemed allies. And yet, they were also described as flawed, prone to war and self-destruction. What kind of creatures would she find if they existed at all? After days of travel, the Astrea emerged from hyperspace into the forgotten sector. Before them loomed a planet shrouded in swirling clouds of dust and ash, its surface scarred with ancient craters. It was desolate, lifeless, yet undeniably artificial structures jutted from the landscape, their geometry alien and precise. As the Astrea descended, Letheria felt a strange sensation, as if the air itself carried the weight of history. The ruins were unlike anything she had seen before, vast metal towers, long since corroded, and sprawling underground complexes that seemed to pulse faintly with residual energy. The landing party disembarked, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Letheria led the way, her wings folded tightly against her back as she stepped into the heart of the ruins. They discovered strange symbols etched into the walls, incomprehensible yet mesmerizing. It was Silvara who found the artifact, a spherical device nestled within an ancient chamber, its surface etched with glowing lines that shifted and pulsed as they approached. Letheria reached out, her fingers brushing the surface. The device hummed to life, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy. At the center of the projection was a small, unassuming planet, marked with a single word, Earth. Letheria's breath caught in her throat. The myths were true. The humans were real. And they were out there. She turned to her crew, her expression resolute. Set course for Earth. If the humans are as powerful as the stories say, they may be our only hope. As the Astrea lifted off, leaving the ruins behind, Letheria couldn't shake the feeling that her journey was just beginning and that the fate of her world now rested on the shoulders of a species she had once believed to be nothing more than a fairy tale. The journey to Earth was perilous. The star maps provided by the ancient artifact were incomplete, forcing the Astrea to navigate through uncharted regions of space. Strange phenomena threatened the ship at every turn: gravitational anomalies, rogue asteroids, and pockets of space where the stars themselves seemed to disappear. Through it all, Queen Letheria remained steadfast, her eyes fixed on the holographic map that guided them to the planet of myth. As they approached Earth's solar system, a mixture of anticipation and apprehension filled the crew. They had studied the limited data from the artifact. Earth was a world teeming with life, but it had been isolated from the galaxy for millennia. The humans' current state was unknown. Were they still the warriors of legend? Or had they fallen into decay, their glory reduced to ashes? When Earth finally came into view, the crew stood in awe. The planet glowed like a jewel in the vastness of space, its blue oceans and green continents swirling with white clouds. For a moment, even Letheria felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the humans were still as remarkable as the stories claimed. The Astrea descended cautiously, entering orbit and scanning the planet's surface. The scans revealed sprawling cities filled with towering structures, bustling with activity. It was clear that humanity had advanced technologically, though not in the ways the Xylorians expected. Their cities lacked the organic elegance of Xyloria's architecture, but there was a sense of purpose and ingenuity in their design. "Your Majesty," Silvara said, pointing to the holographic display. "I've identified a location where we can make contact. A facility that appears to be dedicated to science and communication." It's heavily secured, but it seems like the best place to start. Letheria nodded. Prepare the landing party. We approach as diplomats, not invaders. The Astrea landed under the cover of night in a remote area near the designated facility. Letheria and her team disembarked, their bioluminescent armor shimmering faintly in the darkness. Despite their advanced cloaking technology, they were detected almost immediately. Blinding lights illuminated the landing site, and a squad of human soldiers surrounded them, weapons drawn. Hold your fire. Letheria called out, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. Her voice, amplified by the translator embedded in her armor, echoed through the night. The humans hesitated, their expressions a mixture of fear and astonishment. Letheria stepped forward, her wings unfurling slightly as she spoke again. I am Queen Letheria of Xyloria. I come in peace, seeking aid for my people. Please, I request an audience with your leaders. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, then lowered their weapons. One of them, a tall man with a stern expression, stepped forward. I'm Captain Jonathan Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. You'll understand if we're cautious. We've never had a visitor like you before. Your caution is understandable, Letheria replied. But I assure you, my intentions are sincere. My world is under attack by a force that threatens not only Xyloria but the balance of the galaxy itself. The Crutherians are relentless, and I fear they will not stop with us. Captain Hayes frowned. Crutherians? Never heard of them. You will, Letheria said grimly. Unless we stop them together. Letheria and her team were escorted to the facility, a sprawling complex filled with advanced technology. There, they met Dr. Elena Martins, a linguist and xenobiologist who had been called in to assist. Dr. Martins, a woman in her late 30s with sharp eyes and an inquisitive mind, was fascinated by the Xylorians. As they spoke, Letheria explained the situation in detail, the Crutherians' conquest of neighboring planets, their devastating weaponry, and the desperate state of Xyloria. She described the ancient myths of humanity and how the Xylorians had come to see humans as legendary warriors capable of impossible feats. Dr. Martins listened intently, occasionally glancing at Captain Hayes. You're saying we're the stuff of legends? She asked, half amused. Letheria nodded. Your resilience, your ingenuity, your ability to overcome even the greatest challenges, these qualities are woven into the fabric of our stories. I only hope they are true. Captain Hayes crossed his arms. We've fought our share of wars, Queen Letheria, but we're not invincible. Still, if what you're saying is true, we can't ignore it. The Crutherians sound like a threat to all life. Dr. Martins leaned forward. We'll need to coordinate with global leaders. This isn't just about one nation, this is a planetary issue. If we're going to help, we need to unify Earth's forces. Letheria was struck by the humans' willingness to collaborate. While the Xylorians often relied on hierarchical decision-making, humanity's approach was multifaceted, involving diplomacy, strategy, and innovation. It was both chaotic and inspiring. Over the next few days, Letheria and her team worked closely with Earth's leaders and military strategists. They shared Xylorian technology, enhancing humanity's existing defenses, while learning about human tactics and weaponry. The humans' resourcefulness amazed Letheria. They adapted quickly, finding creative solutions to problems that had stymied her own people. One evening, as the preparations continued, Letheria found herself alone with Captain Hayes. They stood on a balcony overlooking the city, its lights twinkling like stars. Do you think your people can do this? Letheria asked quietly. Defeat the Crutherians? Hayes looked thoughtful. We're not perfect, Your Majesty. We've made plenty of mistakes. But if there's one thing humanity is good at, it's rising to a challenge. When we're pushed to the brink, we fight back with everything we've got. Letheria studied him, her amethyst eyes reflecting the city lights. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps the humans were not just fairy tales after all. Perhaps they truly were the galaxy's last, best hope. "We'll fight with you, Queen Letheria," Hayes continued. "Not because of myths or legends, but because it's the right thing to do." Letheria nodded, her wings rustling softly in the night breeze. "Then let us fight together and may the stars guide us." As Earth's forces prepared for the journey to Xyloria, Letheria realized that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics. It was their unwavering spirit, their ability to come together in the face of insurmountable odds. For the first time since the Crytharian invasion began, Letheria dared to believe in victory. The Astrea emerged from hyperspace into the tumultuous skies of Xyloria. Below, the once shimmering cities of the planet were now shadows of their former glory, cloaked in smoke and ash. Crytharian warships hovered like ominous specters, their weapons firing relentlessly at Xylorian strongholds. The sight filled Queen Letheria with a mixture of rage and determination. Beside her, Captain Jonathan Hayes stood, his face steely as he took in the chaos. Behind them, the human fleet, a diverse armada of Earth's most advanced ships, retrofitted with Xylorian technology, readied itself for battle. The collaboration between the two species had created a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "This is it," Letheria said, her voice firm. "If we fail here, my people are lost." Hayes placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "We won't fail. Humanity fights best when the odds are against us." As the fleet descended, Letheria addressed both her people and the human forces through a unified communication channel. Her voice carried the weight of a queen and the resolve of a warrior. "Xylorians, humans, hear me. Today, we fight not as separate species, but as allies united against a common enemy. The Crytharians believe they can destroy us, that they can break our spirit. Let us show them the strength of unity, the power of resilience. For Xyloria, for Earth, for the galaxy, fight with all you have." A roar of approval echoed through the channel as the combined fleet surged forward. The battle had begun. The first wave, the initial assault, was chaos. Crytharian warships turned their firepower on the human vessels, clearly surprised by their presence. Earth's ships were smaller and less sleek than the Xylorian designs, but what they lacked in elegance, they made up for in raw efficiency. Human pilots used unpredictable maneuvers, exploiting gaps in the Crytharian formations. Meanwhile, Xylorian ships provided cover, their bioluminescent energy shields absorbing damage while their plasma cannons delivered precise strikes. On the ground, Xylorian soldiers, bolstered by human marines, launched a coordinated counteroffensive. Human soldiers, armed with experimental plasma rifles powered by Xylorian crystals, pushed back Crytharian drones with a ferocity that left even the Xylorian warriors in awe. Letheria fought alongside her people, her wings slicing through the air as she engaged Crytharian ground forces. Her bioluminescent armor glowed brightly, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. At her side, Captain Hayes led a squad of human marines, his voice steady as he barked orders. The two leaders fought shoulder to shoulder, their actions inspiring those around them. The turning point: despite their initial successes, the Crytharians began to adapt. Their drones evolved mid-battle, developing countermeasures to human and Xylorian weapons. Their warships deployed massive siege engines, raining destruction upon Xyloria's remaining strongholds. The Alliance forces were being pushed to their limits. In the midst of the chaos, Selvara and Dr. Elena Martins worked together in a mobile command center, analyzing Crytharian technology for weaknesses. It was Dr. Martins who made the breakthrough. "The Crytharian ships are linked through a central neural network," she explained. "If we can disrupt the network, we can cripple their entire fleet." "But how do we do that?" Selvara asked, her voice tight with urgency. Dr. Martins pointed to a massive Crytharian dreadnought hovering above the battlefield. "That ship. It's the central hub. If we can disable it, we sever their connection." The plan was bold and dangerous. Letheria volunteered immediately. "I'll lead the assault," she declared. "This is my world, my fight." "No way you're going alone," Hayes interjected. "If we're doing this, we're doing it together." The final assault. The Astrea, escorted by a small fleet of human and Xylorian ships, made a daring run toward the Crotherian dreadnought. The enemy fleet closed in, their weapons hammering at the Alliance ships. One by one, the escorts fell, sacrificing themselves to protect the Astrea. Inside the ship, Letheria, Hayes, and a joint team of Xylorian warriors and human marines prepared for a direct assault. As the Astrea breached the dreadnought's defenses, the team deployed, fighting their way through the corridors of the massive ship. The Crotherian interior was a labyrinth of dark metal and pulsating energy conduits. The team encountered fierce resistance, but their combined strength carried them forward. Letheria's wings carved through enemy drones, while Hayes' steady aim picked off Crotherian soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Finally, they reached the neural core, massive, pulsating structures surrounded by energy shields. Selvara and Dr. Martins, guiding the team remotely, worked to disable the shields while Letheria and Hayes defended the position. Time was running out. The Crotherians were converging on their location. When the shields finally fell, Letheria and Hayes planted explosive charges on the core. As they prepared to retreat, a Crotherian warlord, a towering, armored figure appeared, blocking their path. "You cannot win," the warlord growled, its voice resonating like grinding metal. "Your unity is weakness. You will fall, as all who oppose us have fallen." Letheria stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You underestimate us. That will be your downfall." The battle with the warlord was brutal. Letheria and Hayes fought side by side, their movements perfectly synchronized. Hayes exploited the warlord's blind spots while Letheria delivered devastating strikes with her plasma blade. Together, they overwhelmed the Crotherian leader, delivering the final blow just as the charges detonated. Victory and unity. The explosion ripped through the dreadnought, severing the Crotherian neural network. Across the battlefield, Crotherian ships and drones faltered, their movements disoriented. The Alliance forces seized the moment, launching a full-scale counterattack that drove the invaders from Xyloria's skies. As the dust settled, Letheria stood on the steps of her ruined palace, looking out over her battered but unbroken world. Beside her, Captain Hayes and the human forces stood in solidarity. For the first time in weeks, there was silence, a fragile, hopeful silence. "You did it," Hayes said, his voice tired but triumphant. "We did it." Letheria nodded, her gaze distant. "Not just us. All of us humans and Xylorians. Together, we were stronger than the Crotherians could have imagined." The victory marked the beginning of a new era. Xyloria and Earth forged a lasting alliance, their cultures blending in ways that enriched both worlds. Together, they began rebuilding, not just their homes, but the hope of a galaxy that had long been fractured. For Letheria, the humans were no longer fairy tales. They were allies, friends, and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, unity could light the way forward.